stopped and it got rented out, and then it was empty for a while, and anyway, then we started it up again. But anyway, so today, yeah, I'm going to talk about team-based right livelihood. Our movement, the Triratna Buddhist Order, has these 6 distinct emphases, and team-based right livelihood is one of them. Actually, I can't quite remember what all the others are. I think there's like the centrality of going for refuge. The arts are really important. It's an ecumenical order, and spiritual friendships are very important. And yeah, team-based right livelihood is one of the important aspects of it. And yeah, I also appreciate that most of us aren't going to be able to work in a team-based right livelihood business. So this talk is about team-based right livelihood and how it works. And then hopefully out of that, we can sort of look more broadly at how we might apply some of those principles to our sort of everyday working situation. So, yeah, team-based right livelihood sort of represents an attempt to bring Buddhist practice into our everyday lives. So into the sort of, this sort of process where we earn a living and meet the world, and how we make our practice part of that. So today I want to explore what team-based right livelihood is. Why does it matter for our spiritual lives? And then I'll say a bit about what it's like from the inside, like my experience of working in team-based right livelihood, and then how we might engage with team-based right livelihood in our everyday, in our current conditions. So first, I'll look at team-based right livelihood in sort of 2 areas. So first, the right livelihood aspect of it, and then most of the talk will probably be about the team-based aspect of it. So, yeah, traditionally, right livelihood means earning a living in ways that are ethical and non-harming and aligned with our values. So the Buddha listed some livelihoods to avoid. Amongst them was dealing in weapons. And I was thinking, maybe one of the ways that could apply to us in our lives is if we have any form of investments or pensions, just to notice where they're being invested. So not to have investments that invest in arms companies. Dealing in intoxicants was another one, and I guess that would include alcohol or recreational drugs, that kind of thing. Dealing in living beings. I mean, in his day, I guess it was specifically aimed towards slavery, and yeah, I imagine. I mean, I have heard that slavery still takes place, but I guess more commonly for us it would be animals. And then the list goes on to include dealing in poisons and so on. But anyway, and various other things. But this is just a starting point. Like Bhante Sangharakshita, the founder of our movement and my teacher, broadened the meaning of livelihood out to say it's not merely about avoiding doing harm, it's also a powerful opportunity for practice. So it's a chance to bring ethics, mindfulness and metta into the whole texture of our days. So right livelihood becomes not just what job do I have, but who do I become through my work? What qualities am I cultivating? So, and when we talk about practice in Buddhism, we're not just talking about meditation. So it's also ethics, meditation, and wisdom. They're the sort of 3 main areas. And the work we do provides like a huge practice ground, especially for our ethical practice. The meetings we're involved in, the conversations we have, the decisions we're part of, the shared projects, they all provide sort of a rich opportunity for our ethical practice. Yeah, so just looking at the team-based Right Life aspect of it, this is work that's done in teams of friends. I mean, this is the thing that's sort of distinctive to Triratna, is sort of team-based Right Livelihood. And at one point in the movement, there were lots of businesses, and in particular, there was one called Windhorse Trading, which was a very big business and had evolution shops. Yeah, so that was probably the most successful business. I mean, unfortunately, most of them closed now. But yeah, it did involve teams of friends working together, and the work would be grounded in spiritual values and structures and ethics. And instead of the workplace being a neutral or even hostile environment for Dharma practice, it really aimed to make work a context for spiritual friendship, for generosity and sort of collective responsibility. So I'll look at each of these in turn, and I'll draw on my experience of working in Dharma's Pajamas, which is the charity shop, and the Mandala Cafe. So spiritual friendship first. So in a team-based Right Livelihood project, everybody working together is a practicing Buddhist. We'll study together. So you have a morning where you study together once a week, and you explore Dharmic principles, reflecting on how they apply in our lives. You engage with each other on the basis of a shared commitment to grow and develop. And I was thinking of an example of what that might look like. And so an example might be a situation where you're finding somebody difficult, and you choose to speak to somebody who isn't also finding that person difficult, and hopefully that person would not collude with you or simply take your side. They'd listen to you, with empathy, and then try and help you to apply wisdom and compassion to the situation. Another aspect of working in a team is that we check in with each other and take an interest, and we make sure we know what's going on in each other's lives, and we support and encourage each other. And I'll say more about how we do that when I give an example of my experience of working at Lamas. And spiritual friendship is just such an important aspect of it. So the friendship that involves, after years of working together as a team, involves a deep level of trust in one another's commitment to spiritual growth. And we all know that we're committed to our own growth and to helping each other to grow. And I was thinking, I'm currently in a confession group with two of the women I used to work with at Lama's Pajamas, and this came about. Actually, we formed this group after I had already finished working there, but after years of working together daily, there's this really deep trust between us. And confession is this practice where we acknowledge our unskillful actions and help each other to understand the habits or views that underpin the actions. So it's not it's not something like guilt doesn't really play a part in it. Instead, it's a sort of, we call it hri, which means this positive sense of shame. Or a sort of heartfelt remorse, paired with a sincere desire to act more skillfully. And and this practice is really effective if you are in a group with people who really trust each other, because it's yeah, it can be very humiliating and confronting to reveal the messier sides of each other. So having this deep sense of trust and friendship really helps. So another aspect of team-based right livelihood is generosity. And there are two aspects of this generosity. So yeah, it's a really radical, different way of working. So instead of being paid a wage, we work on the basis of generosity rather than exchange. So in effect, we volunteer our time and the centre supports our living costs. And we call this living on support. So it means that our rent and bills are paid and we have time off to go on retreats, as well as a retreat allowance to pay for those retreats. And we receive a sort of modest stipend for essentials and small treats. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to live more simply and embrace a degree of renunciation. And at the same time, we're trying to cultivate this inner sense of abundance. So one that comes from, that doesn't come from possessions or disposable income, but from good communication, from feeling cared for, from caring for others, from feeling valued within our community and from within our friendships. So working this way also helps to break that habitual link between how much one's paid and your worth as a person. And before I started working for the movement, I used to work in investment banking, and yeah, it seemed that well, certainly in that environment, it seemed to me that very much one's income was very tied to, I guess, your status, and it did seem like your value. It was very easy to mistake how much you earned for your value as a person. Yeah. So another key aspect of this generosity is dana. Generosity and dana sort of mean the same thing, and it's dana for the centre. So all profits from the business go directly towards making the Dharma more, they all go to the centre. So towards making the Dharma more accessible and available to others. And we genuinely believe that the Dharma can transform people's lives, and that making it freely available is the most generous gift that we can give. So I recently finished reading a book by, I've just been on retreat for a week, and I was reading this book by Nagabodhi called Jaibin. And I mean, it's a great read, actually. It's about his time in India, but just he was writing at a time when team-based right livelihoods were much more of a, they were much more prevalent in the movement. And actually, and the retreat centre I was at was actually paid for by one of the businesses that was doing really well at the time. Croydon had this restaurant that was doing really well, and the profits of that went into buying the retreat centre. It's actually, Triratna doesn't have any wealthy benefactors, and it doesn't get government grants or anything. And usually when people become Buddhists, they tend to scale down their working life. So it was really helpful having those businesses, especially Windhorse publication. Windhorse Trading did put a lot of money into helping set up a lot of centres and helping retreat centres. So anyway, dana is a really important aspect of team-based right livelihood. And then another aspect of it is collective responsibility. And so as a team, we share collective responsibility for the welfare of the business, So both in Lamas and Mandala, everyone feels responsible for the whole endeavor. So even though there are managers, the sense of ownership and care is shared across the team. It's our main form of practice, and it's not just somewhere where we earn the money that we need and to manage the rest of our lives. Yeah, so it's not just a Buddhist business, it's a Dharma practice lived through work, deliberately structured to support the spiritual development of everyone in it. And we also have collective responsibility for friendship, for commitment, and for transformation. So for friendship, people are working with each other. We're not just working alongside each other. So we actively befriend each other. Yeah, so there's the saying that you can't choose your family, but you do choose your friends. Well, team-based right livelihood sort of somewhat turns that on its head, because we can't necessarily choose who comes on the team, but once they are on the team, we do actively we do actively make an effort to befriend each other. And then commitment, yeah, it's a willingness to engage ethically and spiritually with each other, to always keep the lines of communication open, to not just to be professional. It's funny, I had a WhatsApp exchange with my sister recently, and she was telling me how there was somebody at work, one of her line managers, that she didn't get on with, but that they were being professional. And yeah, it's so not that. It's really really committing to working through things when they're difficult. And yeah, it's the recognition that work can transform us. And often we change through the difficulty, through sort of bumping up against each other. So a simile that's often used is that of a jewel in a sort of tumbling machine. It's the tumbling and the bumping against each other that makes the jewels shine, that makes these rocks shine. So often it's the difficulties we have that provide the most learning. It's when we bump up against each other that we see what the views are that we're holding to most tightly. I remember somebody once sort of saying something like, "Oh, do you want to be right, or do you want to resolve the issue?" And yeah, sometimes I think, oh, it's humbling to realize just how often not only do I want to be right, but I want others to see and acknowledge that I'm right. So work provides a lot of opportunity for difficulties to arise. And yeah, and although it might sound a bit tripe or flippant, like difficulties really do provide opportunities for growth. And it's one of the things that can make team-based right livelihood both exciting and challenging. Yeah, so it brings out our best, and it also brings out our maybe less developed areas. Yeah, so the other aspect I want to look at is why team-based right livelihood matters spiritually. So yeah, so it's not just an admirable idea. So it also touches on three aspects of the Buddhist path. So on ethics, ethical sensitivity, on Sangha, spiritual friendship, and yeah, integration and sort of living a simple life. So yeah, so I've just been on a retreat, and yeah, I was thinking when we're on retreat, we're in these ideal conditions where we deliberately and consciously working on our minds. And yeah, really consciously working on our ethical practice. So Yeah, so when we're meditating and the person behind us is shuffling or breathing really heavily, um, we might feel the irritation arising, and we feel it in our body, and we work with our mental states that arise, and we put our energy into responding to that skillfully. Um, and and all the conditions on retreat feel like they really geared up to support that. And I was thinking, oh, ethics at work, um, it's the same and it's different. I mean, it's partly we're just not always so attuned to the fact that we're not always so attuned to when our mind is moving towards irritation. It like all happens so quickly, and yeah, things seem to go wrong in tandem with each other. So yeah, it's. I was thinking like work is often a much sharper practice ground, and yeah, when I was working in the cafe, I would notice that the dishwasher would inevitably break down just as the cafe got really busy. It would be the day that somebody from the core team called in sick. And it's a situation that you can't walk away from. Like you're just there, and you're very reliant on everybody else in the team, and that's the time. Those precious situations. I mean, certainly for me, that's the time that I was most likely to notice that somebody in the team was like yakking away to a customer for much too long, or not clearing the tables quickly enough, or yeah, doing something, I don't know, sort of disappearing on an extra long lunch break. Um, yeah, so work in those conditions, I feel like, oh, it really does provide the practice ground. It gives, there's always opportunity for cultivating patience, generosity, and awareness, particularly awareness of our own mental states. In one of his seminars, Bhante Sangharajka was talking to the team at Windhorse Trading, and he was saying that we're really practicing when we can respond to a $10,000 deal, a £10,000 deal falling through at the last moment with the same level of equanimity as when everything is going brilliantly. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic example, but it does sort of point to the spirit of right livelihood. And yeah, working a team, I suppose that's one of the real gifts of working in a team. It gives us the chance to make ethics a lived, embodied, and habitual experience. Instead of seeing the ethics or precepts as rules, we can experience them as much more as guidelines, as principles that if we live in accordance to them, they'll really help our lives to unfold more happily and to run more smoothly, both for ourselves and for everybody else around us. And we do really see this at work. It really brings that to the fore over and over again. And then the other aspect is spiritual friendship, Sangha. So yeah, working in a team really strengthens our connections with others. We see each other's strengths and vulnerabilities. We learn to support each other, to challenge each other, to forgive and be forgiven. And yeah, it particularly happens when you're working together every day. I think, yeah, this the jobs I was working at, we were doing the same work, and that sort of everyday lived experience, yeah, just provides a real opportunity for friendship to grow. I mean, mostly we spend more time at work than we do with anyone else. So there really is so much opportunity. And then integration and simplicity. So yeah, often our lives are fragmented. So we have sort of work on one side and our spiritual life on another pile, and then our friends and family somewhere else. And team-based Right Livelihood brings all these strands together. It asks us, like, can my daily life be an expression of my deepest values? Not just before breakfast or after work, but all my waking hours. And yeah, this integration of sort of bringing all of us in cuts through the split that many of us can feel between our spiritual life and our everyday lives, and yeah, can create the sense of wholeness, of everything moving in the same direction. Yeah, so I'll talk a bit about my experience of working in a team-based Right Livelihood business. So I've worked in two, as I mentioned earlier. I worked in the charity shop and the cafe, and I worked in the charity shop for 13 years. So yeah, I'll speak more about that one. Also, because I think that was particularly suited to a team-based Right Livelihood business. Yeah, so just the way we were able to structure it, I think, worked really, really well. So yeah, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it's like one of the basics of Right Livelihood is that it has to be ethical. That's sort of like a core principle, and yeah, and an yeah, charity shop is definitely ethical. Yeah, I was thinking in donating things to a charity shop, one you give other people, it allows an opportunity for generosity, and actually people were amazingly, and still are, actually it's still going, people were and are incredibly generous, and it's wonderful being on the receiving end of so much generosity. Yeah, certainly the recycling aspect of it is very ethical. Yeah, so much is known about the environmental impact surrounding the production of new clothes. There's water pollution from the dyeing process, the throwaway mindset of fast fashion creating mountains of waste, the carbon emissions involved in production, and finally, many clothing brands have been criticised for poor labour practices. So yeah, I feel like Lamas provides a way for people to buy clothes that doesn't compromise their ethical values, and yeah, all the profits go to the London Buddhist Centre, so nobody's unwittingly supporting something unethical. So as a business, it's sort of largely ethically clean. Yeah, and then there's the other aspect of generosity, like being on support. Yeah, so yeah, as I mentioned, yeah, I'll just talk a bit about my experience of being on support and the effect that it had on me. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I used to work in investment banking, and at the time I got what now looks like a lot of money for what I did, but I never actually felt like yeah, it's funny with I mean, it's a bit crazy looking back now. It's quite a long time ago, so it's quite hard to connect exactly with my feeling. But I do remember there are always people earning more than you, so somehow it never quite feels enough. And at this time of year in particular, you'd get bonuses, and that seemed to be like a measure of how well you were doing, and yeah, a particular time for comparison. And I also know that, yeah, if people were earning a lot more than me, I often felt less compassionate towards them. So if they, yeah, weren't, I don't know, if they were getting things wrong or they were ill, yeah, I didn't have much empathy for them. And then also, I think I looked to money to provide a sense of fulfillment beyond its capacity to fulfill. I think the most surprising thing that I found about moving on to support was that I felt much more abundant than I ever did when I was working commercially. I think it took the emphasis of money to such an extent that I didn't really think about it all that much. Anyway, that was the most surprising aspect of it. I mean, it definitely helped that my lifestyle changed significantly as well. Like, so you know, I live a much more wholesome life than I was at the time. You know, I used to spend, well, a lot of money on alcohol and going out and, you know, doing much more expensive things. But I now have much deeper and more nourishing friendships. So I don't think I'm looking for quite the same emotional nourishment from things and experiences in quite the same way as perhaps I was then. Yeah, which brings me to my experience of friendship. So, yeah, there's definitely something about being in a situation where you all share the same values, where you're doing the same job, where you're listening to each other every day, you're having disagreements, and then you're making up. Um, yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, we have a practice where we're checking in every morning. And so what this means is that we had time every morning to we each had about, I don't know, say 5 or 10 minutes to say what was going on for us emotionally. We usually emotionally, we would sometimes talk about our meditation practice, but yeah, it was sort of what was going on for us. And this was really helpful, sort of in two ways, really. One, in that over time, we started getting familiar with the sorts of things that inspired us, that we found painful, that we were struggling with. Yeah, by checking in every day, we were sort of revealing ourselves more to each other, probably more deeply than we realized. And then another aspect of this practice was that before we actually started work, we knew if somebody was struggling. So, you know, we didn't take offense if they were quiet or it seemed like they were out of sorts. And also we were more able to support them if, you know, we knew that they were having a difficult time. And then another important practice that we did was at the end of each day, we did this practice which we call rejoicing in each other. So we would have to go around. We had a team of 4 of us at the time, but volunteers were also included in this practice if they were around at the end of the day. And so what you would do is you'd go around at the end of the day and you would say one thing that you had noticed or appreciated about what the person had done during the day, or a quality that you had noticed or admired about them. And one of the lovely things about this practice is that it really helps to train your mind to look for what you appreciate about a person. I think our minds are so, we're so conditioned, or at least it must be a survival strategy. We're just automatically critical, you know, of ourselves and of other people. We see what goes wrong without any effort whatsoever. So this is a real way of helping to address that balance, sort of rebalance our minds and help look for the things, yeah, we appreciate and value about each other. And actually, it really had the effect that I left work every day feeling great. And so it has a real uplifting effect at the end of the day as well. Um, yeah, and yeah, there's something about doing that that also helps to create this bond of friendship between you. So, so the joys of working in a team-based right livelihood, some of the joys and challenges. So the joys were definitely working in a team where people genuinely care about how you are, and you care for them as well. Decisions are made ethically on the basis of ethics, not economics, or not just economics. A shared sense of purpose, feeling held and encouraged by the other members of the team, knowing that your strengths are appreciated and that your weaknesses are met with kindness, and a sense of building something meaningful together. So for me, working in team-based right livelihood was definitely one of the most transformative spiritual experiences of my life. Possibly more so than retreats, because it's so continuous, it's so part of one's everyday experience. And then some of the challenges. So it's not always idyllic. So you do have clashes, and when you work so closely together, you're bound to have differences of opinions, and when a clash happens, it can feel like it takes such a lot of talking to get back into a place of harmony. When you work in a team-based right livelihood business, you're very much part of the Sangha, and everybody in the Sangha has an opinion on how things should be done. So so it's wonderful having such a supportive Sangha, and they can also be in a very opinionated Sangha. Living on support can take a bit of getting used to if one's been used to having more disposable income. And it can be hard to genuinely distinguish what's a need and what's a preference. And then the sort of work that lends itself easily towards team-based right livelihood, or at least both the businesses that I've worked in, the shop and the cafe, are both rota-based. So there's not much flexibility with time, and you're very affected if anybody's off sick or has had to take time off unexpectedly. So those are some of the challenges. And work's such a feels like such a positive opportunity to practice. Like working with the same people can help mirror our tendencies. It can help show us where we're stuck, reactive, defended or avoidant. It can bring our unexamined habits right into the light. It can also help to show our positive qualities. I personally gained a lot of confidence through working at Lamas. I think having people rejoice in my positive qualities on a daily basis meant that over time, I just felt the sense of integrating and believing more the positive qualities that people were rejoicing in me for. And that just helped me become much more self-confident as a person. So I don't know if you've come across the phrase that difficulties are part of the path. Well, in Buddhism, we take the view that we grow not by avoiding friction, but by meeting it with awareness. And team-based right livelihood provides ample opportunities for difficulties to arise, I mean, really, any life situation does. But I guess the advantage of working in a team in this way is that we're friends and we're committed to working through things, to working on ourselves and to helping each other to grow. And the challenges we have offer insights into our own patterns and behaviors and provide opportunities for vulnerability. So in my experience at work, when I had a clash or disagreement with somebody, like if either of us had, or certainly when I took a risk and got into a difficult conversation with somebody, the end result afterwards was that I felt much more of a sense of closeness and trust to the person than I had prior to taking that risk. So it feels like the possibility for transformation is just very, very strong in those conditions. So this is all about working in a team, but things have changed quite a lot since the early days of the movement, where there were so many more opportunities to work in a team, or in a team-based right livelihood business, and they're just not so many opportunities anymore. And I was trying to think of like how we could bring the spirit of team-based right livelihood into the workplace. Like how can we bring that into where we work, into our working situations. So so the values of team-based right livelihood. So there's work as practice, spiritual friendship, and then dana and generosity. So work as practice, like in a sense, we can use whatever work situation we're in as an opportunity to practice, to practice our ethical behavior. So we might not be explicitly supported by the people around us, but it's really important that we don't underestimate the effect that we have on the people around us. If we behave more ethically and we act with metta and care, we will positively affect the people that we work with. And we could also get into the habit of trying to notice the things that we appreciate about the people that we work with, to notice what they do well and to let them know, just to pass that on. And we could pass on any positive feedback that we've heard about them from other people to them. We can really help create positive working environments wherever we work. Mutual support. I guess we could really try and either get together with people that we already work with, or form groups with people that we meet at the Buddhist Centre and agree to check in about our ethical practice at work and how we can make our practice at work more of a practice. Like we might be able to form those sort of friendship support groups outside of, well, if we can form them in work, so much the better. But if not, maybe we can form them outside of work and then help bring that more into work. And then dana and generosity. So one of the foundations of team-based right livelihood is dana, or generosity, and raising money in order to help the Buddhist Centre. So it's one of the key practices of our spiritual lives. And yeah, money is energy, and it's also a mirror. So it helps us to see all sorts of views. So if we're reluctant to give, it can be very revealing and helpful to our spiritual growth to look at what our views around money are. Like, do we have an inner sense of lack, or do we that we somehow think that money can compensate for? I mean, the whole topic of money is huge, actually. I think one could give a whole a talk on money. But yeah, it's very important. It's necessary, and like, in a way, the Buddhist Centre couldn't run without money. Like, a Buddhist Centre is surprisingly costly to run, and yeah, and like I said, we don't have wealthy benefactors. We don't get government grants. Like, we really are reliant on people's generosity. Yeah, to run a Buddhist centre or a retreat centre, and yeah, so one can really help by supporting yeah, that aspect of team-based right livelihood is one that we can really help with by setting up, yeah, by helping to support your local Buddhist centre. And one can be as radical or not as you like. There's a well, I just heard about this a couple of weeks ago, actually. There's a young man that is involved with Al Foxton, which is a project in Somerset. And he didn't actually want to join the team. He worked in tech and he really enjoyed his job. So so he lives on site and he's very much part of the team. But the way that he does it is he takes what he needs to support himself and then gives all the rest of it to the project, which is extremely, yeah, it is radical. But, you know, team-based right livelihood is a radical option. Yeah, and then, yeah, anyway, giving a regular standing order is a very good starting point as well. And then there's shared vision. It's like, yeah, where possible, to really ground your work in values that matter, like in generosity, in harmony, integrity, doing what you can to keep your Buddhist vision alive at work. And yeah, when we do this, then our work becomes yeah, a sort of creative force in our spiritual practice. Yeah, so just to conclude, like, team-based right livelihood begins with a question. It's like, how can we live our lives in service of the Dharma? Not in a worthy or self-sacrificing way, but in a way that's joyful, transformative, relational, ethical, integrated, and full of human warmth and shared practice or shared purpose. It invites us to see our work not as an obstacle to practice, but as a vast field of practice in itself, a field that can nourish friendship, deepen awareness, and help us to grow into wiser, kinder, more responsive human beings. Yeah, and and maybe continue exploring how our livelihood, whatever it looks like, to explore how it can be an expression of our spiritual practice, and how we can support each other in that great undertaking. So